get started. All right, everybody. So welcome to How to Prepare Your Job Search for 2024. Happy Tuesday, January 9th. We are officially into the first full week of January. I want to say second because yesterday, or rather last week, we had New Year's Eve on a Sunday. So this only counts as the very first week of the year. And so today we're going to be talking about the job search ahead, what everything looks like, how I and the community behind me can be here to support you, and what to expect as we get into the new year. So let's get started. Um, and so as we begin, I want to just go ahead and quickly introduce myself first. My name is Albert Chen. I am the founder of Albert's List. I'm San Francisco Bay Area born and raised, job search entrepreneur, I guess if you could call it that, and a technology worker as well. And I'm the founder of Albert's List, a job search community of 47, now actually heading into 48,000 members on Facebook, connecting job seekers, hiring managers, and job opportunities. Many of you have found us through there. And if you are not there, I highly encourage you to go ahead and join. And I'm going ahead and dropping the link both here in the comment section of the webinar, and it'll also be here on the YouTube recording as well in the description section. And so what are we talking about today? The agenda, right? I want to first go through this in a very measured and meaningful way because it's always important to understand the current state of the job market, right? So the first thing is that's what I want to talk about. We're going to rehash 2023 a little bit and talk about where things have been because that's going to help us set up ourselves for 2024 and understand where we can go next because without knowing the past, you can't really chart out the future. Then we're going to talk about three things in figuring out your job search. Number one, we're going to talk about figuring out what to do. Then we're going to talk about how to approach the 2024 job search and what matters along the way. And then we're going to talk about what to do once you've been hired, because we're all going to get you jobs here by the time 2024 is complete. And then we're going to go into next steps and think about what's next from that side of the house. So what are our goals for today's webinar? Well, number one, I want to provide you a 50,000-foot view of the job market. I want you to get an understanding of where we've been because, in my opinion, knowledge is power, right? Knowing where the economy is, high inflation, who's getting funding, all of that stuff will guide your job search because it ultimately will help you make better decisions at the end of the day. And that's why we're all here. We want to make better decisions. Number two, I want to leave you empowered to begin your job search. If you've felt overwhelmed, if you felt like giving up, if you felt like it's been a terrible year or a couple months in your job search, hit that clap emoji that I think might be available to you on Zoom. And, tell me, it's literally been that bad, right? And so I want to leave you in that sense of feeling powerful in your career so that you can move forward and do the things that you want to do and raise your family, et cetera, what have you, because I also believe that's important too. And then number three, I want to bring clarity to how to approach your career. You may be in a career transition. You might be a new grad. You might have been laid off like last week because that's actually been going on again. The layoffs are back. And I want to give you some clarity on what to do next. Maybe it's time to transition into something new. Maybe it's time to do something different. And we'll offer that here and hopefully some insight. Along the way, I also want to talk a little bit about the Maslow's hierarchy of needs as it relates to jobs. So for those of you who are here for the very first time and don't know what Maslow's hierarchy of needs is, it's sort of the framework that describes what human beings care about when it comes to looking at their job search and what they need, right? It's going from the bottom to the top where physiologically we all need food, water, sleep, the ability to sweat. And then once we have those things, we're able to acquire property, have health, start a family. And then once we get above that, we can get into thinking about things like creativity and morality and having self-esteem and so forth. And so I want to bring that into the framework that I'm going to use when it comes to the job search today. This is a diagram that I've used for many years. And this is what I would like, this is what I call the hierarchy of job needs. And I developed this about 6 years ago. And I'm bringing it back this year because that's important, I think, to live in this framework of understanding that in order to find a job in 2024, and really a job in any market, you need a certain number of items really at the very base level: hunger, attitude, hustle, self-awareness, resilience, commitment. I put attitude twice because I think this is that important. And then getting to your cover letter, personal branding, networking, job searching skills, and your interviewing. And all of these things, when summed up together, create your job search. But having the right attitude and hunger, self-awareness is so key because those are just fundamental to you getting that job. And by showing up in this Zoom room today to attend this webinar, you are making that commitment to yourself that, yes, I want that job. I want to make a difference in my life. I want to make a difference in the lives of those who love me. And I'm going to be out here and I'm going to do what it takes to find that next job. So, that's my moment of Zen, my moment of spirituality with many of you. And so, with that, if you're ready to go, hit a thumbs up. And we're going to move into the next part, which is the state of the job market. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. And so, when we talk about the state of the job market, we know exactly what's been going on, right? Since the beginning of January 2022, it's been nothing but a steady drumbeat of layoffs. And, it really came to a head last January when Facebook and Amazon and Google, and really Google and Facebook for the first time in their lives decided to lay off employees for the first time because they had felt that they had overhired during the pandemic. And as you can see that with everything else, all the other companies, a lot of other companies followed suit and are still following suit because now that the big companies have decided to make their choice, everybody feels like there is permission to do so. And along the way, we had inflation, right? Inflation finally dropped to 3.1% in November, but it had risen to the middle nines at the beginning of in the middle of 2022. And that had become something too, which had led to the rise in interest rates, which made housing a lot harder, but also inspired these layoffs that we see here in the 2022 to early 2023 range because it became more expensive to hire the talent that's out there. And so a lot of companies have decided to let people go because the projects that they didn't anticipate that would get expensive had gotten expensive. But even though all of that's happening along the way, we have a drop in monthly unemployment. It dropped to its lowest in January and April of last year at 3.4%. And now it's a little bit higher at 3.7% because somehow but surely the American economy continues to be resilient. And this is important because it means there are still jobs out there. They may not be the jobs that you want. They might be your retail jobs, your manufacturing jobs, your healthcare jobs. But when sometimes all you need all you need is a job, sometimes all a job will do. And so, unemployment is at the lowest that it's been in a generation. And there's a lot of differing opinions on where this might go this year. But as of today, we're looking at 3.7%, and it's so far staying flat, and the economy continues to remain resilient. What else has been going on the last year, right? So if you haven't been underneath a rock, you know that artificial intelligence, or AI, and healthcare have continued to skyrocket in popularity. Everything seems to be something that'll be hit by AI, whether it's manufacturing, education, hospitality, construction, finance, and insurance. And we're all thinking about what is it going to be? What is it going to take to not get hit by AI? Should we all become mechanics? Should we all become electricians? Should we all become police officers? And so these are the questions that really dominate our conversational airwaves these days because things like AI lead to layoffs, right? And so we heard right before the holidays that Google is likely to lay off 30,000 people because now AI sells their ad technology better than salespeople do. And so you also see that in surveys, a certain number of companies are going to end up replacing workers due to AI. And that's just a byproduct product of capitalism, but it's also just technology doing its work in creative destruction. And you know what? The worst part of that is that layoffs are expected to continue. And I've been updating this slide every couple of weeks because things just keep on happening. And so, as you know, not only are layoffs expected, but they are starting to occur. Just as we got back from the holiday break the other week, Xerox announced that it would cut 15% of its workforce. And just yesterday, Unity, the gaming company, announced a cut of 25% of its staff as it continues to reset. And so they have officially laid off 2,000 people since the beginning of the middle of November when their CEO said that things needed a reset. So if you're in the gaming industry, I feel your pain. It's terrible to be out there right now, but hopefully things will get better at some point. But right now it's difficult, and I just read a little bit earlier too that BlackRock, the finance company, is going to get rid of 3% of its staff. And so the news isn't good. But you know what? In every single area of possible doom and gloom, I also have to look at the bright spots too, right? And so here's what I'm thinking about when it comes to the industries that matter here in the next couple of quarters. You can do this research yourself as well by going onto Google and looking at who's getting funded, going to crunchbase.com. And so this in particular is who got funded in Q3 of 2023. And it's important to understand like what industries are these all in, and can I look for companies in similar industries? Obviously, something that shows up a lot here is AI and machine learning, as you can see with number one, number 10, and number three, which all support the AI industry. But what else is really hot, right? You have clean tech, you have a lot of automotive, so electric vehicles are coming in 2024, whether you like it or not. And that could be a great place to be as well. And then e-commerce and software are still of interest to a lot of people as well. So, these are the 10 largest fundings globally that happen, and companies are continuing to get funding, with the exception of that now that a lot of venture capital is very specific towards areas that are making money. So, when it comes to job hunting, knowing what lies ahead and knowing what's happened and what people care about and what is really gaining that momentum is really key. And as you can see with companies number one, number six, and number 10, those are all located somewhere here in the San Francisco Bay Area or actually out in Nevada. And so that's just something to think about, right? Like with funding, companies end up hiring. And so when companies end up hiring in these fields, you definitely want that opportunity to go and see what kind of openings that they have because they're looking to scale up. And so the forward forecasts, I would say it's still a lot of hope. There's a little bit of darkness in there, but there's still a lot of hope. So, I've heard from recruiters who've said that when there might be a return to growth in spring 2024, depending on where you're at. Also, a lot of economists and analysts expect interest rates to fall, and election years tend to be a little bit better, which may spur some investment as well. And of course, number three, AI is going to remain hot as companies continue to invest in the technologies that they have and into new technology that can help a variety of use cases. And of course, number four, whether we like it or not, recession worries are going to continue. Now, whether that recession ever gets here or not remains to be seen. But of course, as an individual who is in control of your own destiny, all of this is speculation, right? It's what a lot of government leaders and reporters and analysts, they sit around with their whiskey and they think about how to prognosticate the next year. And we don't really know what that's like until it actually happens. And so that's why I say you are still in control of your own career. So, I want you to look at yourself in the mirror and want to say that, you are the best advocate for yourself and you are still in control of everything that is for you. And so I'm going to go into a little bit of everything else now, which is how to figure out what to do, because I think that's what most of you came here for. We're in a market right now where maybe we feel lost, where we're not sure where we want to go next. And so it's always important, as every time I've discovered in my life where I feel lost or directionless or rudderless, that it's always important to go back to the fundamentals. And what does the fundamentals look like? It's knowing that you have to start with what you do know. Well, all of us are adults here. I think Albert's List serves the 25 to 34 and the 35 to 44 audience. So, to be sort of a little cliche, we've all lived a little. And by all being having lived a little, I really mean that we've had enough experiences in our lives to know what we like, to know what we don't like, and to be able to reflect and be introspective on those things because at the end of the day, we we need to we've experienced so much of life that we know that. So, starting with what you know, most people see their careers as knowing the answers now, but it's not that. It's being able to work through those dark moments, understand what your values are, know what you've been good at, picking out projects where you know you've kicked butt in the past and taking that and maybe thinking that you could turn that into a career. Knowing your values and knowing your interests. What excites you? What gets you up in the morning? What is it that you care about? And then finally, knowing who you know in these respective industries. And so these are all things that matter as you think through your job search because it starts with you, right? We spend 40 hours plus a week in our jobs every single week. And if you multiply that by 50 weeks a year, you're looking at 2,000 hours sitting in a chair for the most of us doing this work. And so it's important for us to actually like what we do or be able to at least manage through what it is that we like that what we do, because if we don't, then work is going to be incredibly, incredibly difficult. And so this is where I lead to my next slide where I talk about a list of values here. And so I'm going to hang around on this slide for a quick moment. I encourage all of you to take your cell phones and take a photo of this, or just hop on Google and look for a list of values. And so why I put this here is because these are things that you think about when it comes to what it is that you care about and what you look for when it comes to a particular job, whether you want it to be remote, whether you want it to be in person, whether you want it to be something else. And for those of you who are watching, yes, this presentation will be shared with other registered participants. So don't worry about that. You will get it. Um, and so, when I think about my own version of what it means for my own values, mine is learning, it's movement, and it's connection, right? So I care about working out. I love traveling. I love being able to see the world. I enjoy I enjoy learning from other people. I enjoy meeting other people. There's 59 of you in here, and I probably haven't met most of you, but I'd probably love to learn from all of you and understand who you are. And then I enjoy connecting. I enjoy listening to people's stories. I enjoy connecting with people's challenges and finding together how we can figure out what those solutions might be. And so that's, why I'm also doing this webinar today, because it helps me connect with all of you so that we can find a better way path forward together and really have a good understanding of what we care about. So as you go through your own values, I encourage you to reflect. I encourage you to find a friend and, place these values on them as well for what you think your values are and get some feedback. Do they think that those are your values too? And, take those values into what you care about next. And, one of these values is job security. So if you value job security and it's the beginning of 2024, that's also something to think about too. And so moving into the next slide, how you also prepare for your job search as you do your research. So we've already been doing a little bit of this today. You pay attention to ongoing trends. You understand the skills that you need to get into a certain job, whether that's learning about generative AI, whether that's becoming fluent as a content marketer, whether that's understanding how it all works together and so forth. And then you're investing in the education and the outcomes. And those can be free courses. This can be a project you start. This can be buying a course if you want to get a certification. And then it's conducting informational interviews. And so if you're here today, it's probably because somebody sent you a reference to come here today, or maybe you discovered this on your own. But unless you're truly isolated, we all know somebody. And really, if you don't know anybody, I believe I probably know somebody. So, my door is incredibly open. Please reach out if there's anybody that I can help you get to know so that you can get to the next part of your life. Please let me know so that can happen. And for those of you who are in the webinar chat. This is an opportunity to say, here's my LinkedIn profile. I'm looking to be a marketer and I want to talk to a marketer. I'm looking to be a product manager and I want to talk to other product managers. I'm an administrative assistant looking to work for a leader. I'm an accounting finance professional looking for my next financial analyst job. And so while I do the rest of this presentation, I'd love to see some of you here in the webinar chat putting those intentions down so that you can get connected and get to know people who can possibly help you get to that next step. And we've already had some people share their LinkedIns. So please connect and state that you found them off this webinar, because that's what this resource is for as well. So if speaking of investing in yourself, right? Some of the things that we have to navigate as we do all of this is, number one, we have to navigate imposter syndrome. If anybody's ever gone into a job interview and said that and felt that they didn't feel that they feel that they weren't good enough, you're not alone. Every one of us suffers from imposter syndrome, especially when you're looking at a job and you have 5,000 other people who are applying for that same job. It's hard to not feel like maybe you're like the best one to be the most qualified, right? And so being in that authentic self area where you you want to be better and you can do better is important. And we have a question here where it says, how do you be your authentic self both virtually and on site, which helps express values with impact in all your interviews discussions? That is a fabulous question. And the way I would answer that question is to tailor your answers into how you speak into the interview. So you should be applying for jobs with intention, understanding how those jobs fit into your needs and what you care about, and then integrate those answers and those words into the answers that you have. So if you see a company that says that you're hybrid and that you collaborate a couple times a week, you have to say within your interview that I value face-to-face connection and that I really like to collaborate because I feel like together everybody achieves more. And so I think that's I think that's a fabulous question. Thank you so much for asking. I think it's great. And for those of you who are in the webinar chat, make sure that your message goes out to everyone as opposed to hosts and panelists so folks can connect with you today. So the number two piece is invest in education and projects. I encourage you to go back to school. I encourage you to take a course, continuing education. LinkedIn Learning is available for free through your local library if you get a library card, so you don't have to pay for that. I even saw the other day that Udemy is free as well. Or not Udemy, but Coursera is free at some of the libraries in the San Francisco Bay Area. And so hopefully you can get a certification that way as well. If you want to start your own side hustle, much like how Albert's List started, if you want to go ahead and put on networking events, if you want to put on webinars like this, but in your own specialty of what you do, you can absolutely do that with the resources that are available. Invite other professionals to join you, build that following, right? We have a democratization of technology in today's world. And so I fully encourage you to take advantage of all the resources possible. Number three, I want you to view yourself as a startup that is ready to launch. I know that every one of us thinks of ourselves as an individual, but we are all skilled individuals that we can see ourselves as our own company. And you're a product. You are a product who is ready to go today, all your flaws, all the best parts of you in there, and you're ready to launch yourself into a company and be that resource that that company hires because they know that they need to get to the next level, and you need to be able to articulate that. And then number four is to network in the right communities. It could be Albert's List, it could be somewhere else. But no matter where you are, make sure that you are around a circle of people that are going towards the same goals as you are. So whether it's online through a meetup group, or whether it's on Eventbrite and meeting up in person, I want you to invest your time in the right communities this year so that the right people get to meet you and you get to build the relationships that matter, so you end up getting referred. Because in an economy where you are going through a tough time like we have now, you definitely want to be able to get referred, because that's how most jobs are. So with that said, let's move into that and let's talk about how to approach the 2024 job search. We spoke a little bit earlier about the job search hierarchy of needs, and we're going to talk a lot about those topics as we go through these next 20 or so slides that I have until we get to the end, maybe more like 17 slides. And so we're going to go along that parallel to that theme. I encourage you to ask questions. I really love that everybody's going to the webinar chat. And once again, make sure your message is targeted at everyone as opposed to hosts and panelists, because for hosts and panelists, I'm literally only looking at you. And while I will love to connect with as many of you as possible, I also want to make sure that you're connecting with other relevant individuals so you can get that job. So what are some of the fundamentals, right? We've had the toughest job market going on since 2008. It may not look like that. You know, the Bureau of Labor Statistics probably junked some numbers, but again, right, it's been tough out there. The tech industry is on its toughest streak since about the year 2000. It's starting to feel like somewhere in between the COVID pandemic and the 2000 recession. And so it's just something to keep in mind. Competition is fiercer than ever across all functions, right? We hear that some jobs have 5,000 applicants. I don't know about you, but as good of a job seeker as I am, 5,000 applicants to compete against even makes me queasy, which means that as you do your job search, you need to make sure that you are applying and in interview processes with as many places as possible so that you can feel a little bit calmer about yourself. Some industries are faring better than others. So if you're looking at AI, if you're looking at healthcare, if you're looking at government, you know, some of these industries really need people. And as you'll learn with one of our upcoming webinars where we're going to talk about alternatives to tech, you know, education and teaching is one area that's growing a lot as well. We saw, you know, great migration out of a lot of roles during the pandemic time because things changed. But now some of those areas where a lot of people moved out of still are in a high demand for a lot of workers. So if you have, you know, your bachelor's degree and your specialty in a particular topic, whether it could be math, history, or whatever, you could walk down to your local school district and probably become a substitute teacher by the end of next week, pending a background check. That's how needy some schools are. So, but your mileage may vary depending on the school district that you're around. Number four is to not be so hard on yourself, but to also be fair, right? So one thing that I always come across when it comes to a job search for me is to understand that, you know, you're going to get your rejections. You're going to get your recruiters who send you jobs that you're not even qualified for. You're going to meet people who are absolutely downright mean to you. But it's also an important thing that just because you're being treated that way does not mean that that is who you are. So, you know, don't be too hard on yourself. A lot of other people are going through this right now. You know, you have 60 other people on this webinar with you right now who may be going through the same exact situation. And yet, in the same sense, you also have to be fair. Are you putting in the effort that you believe is best for yourself as you go through the job search? Are you applying every day? Are you asking for referrals? Are you networking really well? Are you posting and putting up your personal brand in a meaningful manner? So if you're doing all of those, then you have every right to not have to be hard on yourself because you know you're doing the work. Whereas if you're saying that you want a job really badly, but you're unwilling to go out of your way to really go and do that and do what's needed, then you know what? That might also be a call for introspection as well. And then finally, number five is to look for opportunities in unlikely places. You know, we all for a long time, I think, leading up into the pandemic, wanted to work for a FANG company. For those of you at home, that's Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google, and I guess Microsoft if you want to do the FANG Plus. And a lot of these companies laid off during these last couple of years. And so where else can you look? You know, there are startups out there, there are smaller private companies, there's consulting firms, and there's a lot of ways to go ahead and figure out where to find the income that you need in order to make things work. Uh, even in even in December, I had posted in my job search community Albert's list that there was a something like an 85% increase in job openings in companies with 1 to 10 people. So, you know, maybe it's a chance for you to go for that small company that you have never done before. So opportunities are found in unlikely places. And you know what? There's 61 of us here in the attendee chat room. You know, 61 of us could all start a company right now and go get some customers tomorrow. You initially may not be making much money, but at least you would have something that you know that you can own and you could work together with. And that's just dreaming out loud. I know that it's not plausible for everybody given their circumstances, but I think you understand the idea. We got another question that says, should you keep applying for jobs even when you have interviews coming up? I want to keep the momentum going, but I don't want to burn myself out with the job search. Yeah, so I believe that you should keep applying for jobs because you don't know if that momentum will end. You should continue to apply for jobs even after you've gotten the offer letter and signed because some things sometimes might change. So keep that momentum going, keep going as fast, keep going as much as you can, and obviously balance your energy as well so that you don't tire yourself too much. So the other thing that I wanted to also bring into this was that, given that that the market has changed, I want everybody to also think in the mindset that you cannot take a great resignation mindset into a return to office world. And what I mean by that is during the great resignation, jobs were aplenty. You had so many job openings. I think at one point there were 12,000 job openings and 2 job openings for every single unemployed person. Now that's gone down to about 1.4 openings for every unemployed person, and so forth. And so it's going to be a lot harder. And in a return to office world where being flexible matters, where thinking through what it is that you want matters, all of these things are going to help you as you go and you look for that next job. Another question. For every LinkedIn job opening, there are something like 200 to 300 applicants. Is it even worth applying to those? I would say yes, it's still worth applying to those because if you're qualified, then you're going to come up to the top of the pile. A lot of people apply for jobs that they're not qualified for. There are also a lot of AI tools out there randomly applying down to people, and uh, and so yes, I would absolutely go ahead and apply for those. Okay, we have more questions coming in, and I'm just going to get these as I come through. Um, Kim, you said from 12,000 down to 1.4. So when there were 12 million, sorry, 12 million job openings, not 12,000. When there were 12 million job openings, there were 2 jobs for every single working professional. Now that there are about, I think, 7 to 8 million job openings, there are now about 1.4 job openings for every single individual. So that's just something to consider. Um, What's my perspective about companies with bad reviews? I would say that companies with bad reviews, sometimes it's a lot of unhappy employees who are doing those reviews, and so you have to understand what may be truly going on there. And so I would also align that with your values. Follow up. Do you know, in your experience, how will recruiters sort these hundreds of resumes? ATSs can miss some qualified candidates. Yeah, that's the tough part, is that the sorting through of these resumes by the ATS system is not perfect. And so have as many keywords as you can match as possible. But further to that, also see if you can get an internal referral in and get that personal touch as you apply. What is the best job seeking platform? How about LinkedIn? Yeah, I mean, I would say that LinkedIn is a pretty good place to go find your job. Although I would also say, I'm going to talk a little bit about it in these following slides, but more so the answer is that you should go find a job that is most relevant to what it is that your interests in your industry are. So if it's on LinkedIn, fantastic. If there are other places to go, then I also encourage you to check those out as well. And then tips and advice for recent college graduate with minimal work experience. So this is a tough one. So I personally started Albert's List because I graduated during the Great Recession. It was a pretty bad time to look for work at that time as well. And I would say when it comes to having that minimal work experience, to focus on the projects that you've done, to focus on the value and the ideas that you can bring to the office. And then even more so, you need to be very much a hustler, somebody who is willing to look at any opportunity as something that you can possibly turn into something bigger. So I would say be flexible, be reasonable as well, and then also come in with that right attitude. Um, is it advisable to reach out to old recruiters for jobs? Absolutely, it is. Yes, always keep those recruiters handy and reach out and see what they might have open. Okay. What is the best way to transition from an IT career that you have a decade of experience in, such as telecom, to another like cloud or security, if job postings want you to have the experience in the new area, but you don't have that experience? So if you're able to get an interview that way, talk about the transitional skills, the transferable skills that you would see in telecom that you would also have in cloud or security. Um, if there's a way to do that in your current job, then see if you can add that into your skill set as well. Or, get the certification and then start doing some of the projects on your own to understand how you can apply one to the other. Good questions. Thank you for asking. So I'm going to keep going here. And so step one along the way of finding your next job and doing and how to approach it is to build your personal brand. So as you all know, it's not who you know or what you know, but rather who knows you. And so that's the way that personal branding works, because you have to leave an impression on people. And and a lot of people with a lot of things on their minds have to want to remember somebody that they can immediately speak to or immediately hire. So leaving that first impression is really important. Number two is to build credibility and recognition. So some of you were on the LinkedIn webinar that we did earlier today. That's important because it helps you build an industry reputation, that you know the insights and that you understand what it is that you're talking about, and could be somebody worth hiring based on that thought leadership alone. And so whether you're building that on LinkedIn, whether you're building your own blog, whether you're doing a video on YouTube or Facebook, having that level of credibility and recognition is important. Number three is to go where your audience is. For most of us, that's LinkedIn here, because we're looking to get hired. And so build your brand where people who know you and care about you professionally are going to be able to see you. And then finally, network and meet people strategically. I had mentioned earlier that I want each and every one of you to find a job, or rather find a network and a community that understands you for who you are and what your capabilities are. And so that's where it's also going to help you build your personal brand. And so what are you going to do with that? You're going to also go on offense with your job search. So when it comes to your job search, it is important for you to be selfish about what it is that you want, because nobody is going to give anything to you if they don't know that you want it. So number one is to turn on your open to work settings. I know we've gotten a lot of people lately who say that these open to work settings are not good because they make you look desperate. I take a look at them and I give them a side eye. And I give them a side eye because if people don't know that you're looking for a job, then they're not gonna think about it. And and you want that job, right? So what are you gonna do to absolutely put yourself in the best position possible? It's all about positioning. It's all about framing yourself in a mind where you know that you're not only gonna go get that job, but you're also going to put yourself front and center for it. So, look at yourself right now in the mirror and tell yourself that you matter. Say to yourself, I matter. Number two, use the job search sites that best fit you. So we just had that question about LinkedIn. If it's on LinkedIn, then fantastic. If it's not on LinkedIn, then I totally encourage you to go elsewhere and find a site that fits within your industry, within your need, within your region, etc. Number three, understand that opportunities can come from unlikely places. So this is, similar to something that I mentioned earlier. I mentioned it again here, is that if you've been thinking about working at a dream company, now may or may not be the time to go do it, but you may find an opportunity from a place that you may not have considered. And I encourage you to look to those places because you never know what you may find. And then number four is to find an accountability partner. Maybe it's somebody you find here in the participants tonight. There are 63 of us. And you just check in every week and say, hey, I applied for 15 jobs this week. I got 3 interviews, and one of them is moving to the next round. What have you done? Right. And so all of those things are important. Okay, so anonymous attendee has an interview question. I'm going to get there actually in the next few slides. So you're right on time with that. So step number 3 is to tell the story that you want heard. And this is everything from building a resume to understanding what it is that you're doing in the interview process and really being concise with how you go through the interviewing work that you do. Right. So building a resume, and for those of you who've been to our resume workshops, come in with the impression, knowing that you are selling yourself short. I believe that out of everybody who is on this webinar right now, 95% of you are selling yourself short because you're focusing on the wrong things and you're not focusing on the impact that employers want. A lot of you are looking to fill column inches when in truth, you should be looking to show the impact that you've made at that company. So go look at your resume, make sure you're not putting fluff in there, and make sure you're telling the story that people want and care about and want to hear. Number 2 is interview questions, right? So you're going to anticipate a lot of questions that come from folks, from the hiring managers you speak to. And so if you've been working in your industry for a while or not even for so long, write down the interview questions that you know you've gotten and put those answers together so you know you can tell the right story and be consistent with it. And then practice, practice, practice. Albert's List does mock interviews every single week when there is someone available to do so. We've done about 85 of these since the beginning of the pandemic. And I would like more folks to come in this year to come and do those with us because those are the important skills that help people really stand out in the interview process, especially when it's so competitive. Number 4 is interview with confidence. So when it comes to interviewing, it's a lot of different things at once. An anonymous attendee, I will get to your question on this very slide. Number 1, it's to understand what's at stake. And I'm going to give you a graphic for this in the next slide. But basically, to understand what's at stake is to know what matters to every single person you speak in the value chain to during your interview process. What does your hiring manager care about? What do your colleagues care about? What does the industry care about? What does the company care about? And what do you care about in particular? And how do you articulate and convey that during the interview process, where when people listen to what you have to say, they believe that you have the credibility and they're impressed with what you have to say. And then it's to understand that the interview is 2 things at the end of the day. Number 1, the interview is knowing where you create risk and figuring out how to mitigate that risk. And then number 2 is to know where you excite employers and build that momentum, right? So this is where the question of our anonymous attendee came in and said, how do you navigate questions about being laid off from a previous employer and get past the prejudice that comes with it? So if you just got laid off, then it's okay because over 450,000 people have been laid off since the beginning of 2022. If you were fired, then you need to come up with a story that showcases what it is that you that maybe something at the company changed, and you need to tell a story about why you moved on. If a company is going to give you prejudice for just being laid off when everybody else was being laid off, then you may want to consider going to another company because they don't understand the current economic environment. But when it comes to this is if you say this the wrong way, then you may create unnecessary risk. And how this looks is, for example, somebody may ask, why did you leave your previous company? And if instead saying that the economic conditions changed and the company made some decisions and I had to move on, and that was one of those conditions that required to be moved on from, that would keep it really safe for you. If instead you said, why did you leave your previous company? And you said, oh, I was fired. Then that builds risk because they're going to say, well, why did you get fired? Oh, I got fired because I wasn't doing the work that I was supposed to do. Why weren't you doing the work that you were supposed to do, right? And so it goes down into the snowball effect of something even bigger, even bigger, before it just gets really awkward. And by that time, it doesn't even seem like you'll have the job. On the contrary, what you want to do is you want to excite employers and build momentum. And so what does that look like? That's when you've been in an interview and you start talking about one of the projects that you've done, and your employer wants to hear more. And they're like, tell us more about what you did here. Tell us more about what it is that you accomplished here. And how can you do that for us? And so those are things that are constantly exciting and build into more ideating where they're saying, okay, now that you've done it over there and you can come over here and do it with us, um, let's let's see how we can do it together. And so those are things that you want in terms of building that excitement. And then you want to use the type of interview questions to your advantage, right? So the way I think about it now is that job interviewing is a game because every single question that is asked during the interview process looks to fulfill a particular purpose, right? There are fact-based questions like what is your background or what salary are you looking for and so forth. And then there's star-based questions that look for situations. Tell me about a time when you failed and what did you learn? Tell me about a time when you were in conflict with another manager. And then there are information-based questions. What do you know about this company? What do you know about our competition? And so forth. And so understanding all these questions and how they work within the whole entire interview bank is going to help you because it ultimately points back to understanding whether they're trying to alleviate risk, build excitement for you, or just want to know something so that they can move you on to the next route. And so with that, we come to the slide about what's at stake, right? So I had mentioned this earlier, talking about knowing what's at stake for your industry, for your company, your colleagues, you, your boss, and your customers. And so if you've been in your industry long enough, you know how this works. If you haven't, you know that with every single company, there's you in the middle, and then there are a variety of stakeholders who care about what it is that you bring to the table that make you interesting to hire. And so the more that you know what's at stake and the more you know what will fulfill what your boss needs, what your colleagues need, what your customers and what your company needs, the better you're going to come across because it shows that you're not just showing up to collect a paycheck, you're showing up to solve problems. And remember, that's what every single company is hiring anyone to do in the first place, to solve problems. If they didn't have those problems, that job opening wouldn't be open because the company would make more money and they want to keep more of the money than they make. It's a harsh truth, but it is what it is. And so step 5, you turn your job hunting into a habit. Don't stop until you sign an offer and keep going until you start. I know that's a really cynical view, but it's a belief that I maintain because in a world where people rescind offers and the economy changes on a dime, promises are not always promises. So keep looking, enjoy that job offer that you've signed, look forward to starting, but keep interviewing just in case things change. I want you all to be safe. I want you all to be protective of yourself because at the end of the day, while you are working for somebody else and it's not about you there, when it comes to having that job offer period, it is all about you. The next one is be consistent about job hunting and finding your next role. It should be a daily habit. This is not something you do for 5 hours one day, 45 minutes the next day, 6 hours the following day, and then take 3 days off of. It is something you do consistently every day, whether it's networking, building your brand, editing your resume, getting yourself out there, and so forth. It needs to happen every single day. And if you need an accountability partner, get one. Number three is to be flexible, but don't sacrifice for the things that you really want. So I said, right, we're in a, you can't bring your great resignation mindset into a return to office world. And truthfully, that is true. You shouldn't take that. But you also shouldn't be taking jobs where you know the toxicity is obvious. If your boss is already looking pretty bad in the interview process, that might not be a reason to take that job. Number four is that it's okay to take a contract as a bridge. So I know we're in the Bay Area where contracting is huge. And if you're somebody who was in a full-time job and you need a contract to hold yourself over, that's something to keep in consideration. If you're going from contract to contract and you have bills to pay, that's something also to keep in consideration as well. So it's okay to take that 6-month, 9-month, 1 year long contract. I don't really recommend the 3-month contracts or below that because they're generally too short, but the longer contracts where you can be a consultant can help you continue making that cash while you look for what's next. Step number 6 is to help others, right? And a lot of you are doing that in the webinar chat today. And so I would encourage all of you to help each other as much as you can, because that's how we get out of this craziness that is today's economy. It's a tough job market out there. And when you all network with each other, since many of you are connecting with each other on LinkedIn, it's important to network, and it's also important to ask about ask how you can help them too. And then share listings that don't fit for you, right? There are lots and lots of job listings that come across any given day that are tough to market. But if you find a listing that you know somebody in your network could use, take that listing and share it with them so that they know. And then finally, boost LinkedIn posts for greater reach by saying comment for reach and so forth. I'm going to answer a few more questions. We're 54 minutes past the hour, so I think we're coming up on here. But this is going quick because I enjoy this topic. Can I speak on freelancing and 1099 opportunities? What are some pros and cons? Yeah, so freelancing and 1099 is really dependent on the person. If you're 1099, you need to track your own taxes, write off your own costs, and just be really cognizant of that. You have less job protections, so you also might get let go at any single point in time. However, depending on the relationship you've built, it could also be a measure of freedom. So pick your poison. There's something there. And actually, if you're on my job search community, we do a great comparison of this too. I think I'm going to bring that into a future slide deck. So thank you for the really great idea. This is related to job trends. Does the inflation rate impact hiring trends, including the amount a company is hiring for that position? Yes, it is. So you'll have inflation means that inflation correlates with how the Federal Reserve thinks about interest rates. When inflation is high, interest rates are raised. So because the presumption is that demand is really high, and that by raising interest rates, you lower the demand for a particular product. You've seen this in the housing market pretty clearly over the past year and a half. And so it's to basically quell demand and hope that people don't buy into whatever that product may be, or just not spend money at all. And so on the flip side, what also happens in the business world is that you have companies that invest into particular projects, or venture capitalists who fund startups. And so when the cost of money goes up, lending out that money as a venture capitalist can be pretty expensive. And so when that gets pretty expensive, I would say that the risk of that project, which could be a moonshot project, increases significantly. And since companies don't really like risk and want to avoid risk, they may very well cut that job instead of keeping it. So that's how it sort of correlates. Let me know if it's something I answered well enough. Yes, I am speaking again an hour with Idea to IPO. The content of the talk is identical. So I will be there again, and I will be rerunning this in an hour if you want to see me do this in an hour. Can you quit a contract position if you've offered a full-time job somewhere else? Yes, absolutely. And you should absolutely do it because there is more stability and the benefits are better. Of course, some people also enjoy being contract because it gives them that level of flexibility for their work as well. So again, check in with your values. All right, so next slide. Step 7 is to continue investing in yourself. Uh, Number 1 is to overcome imposter syndrome and build confidence, right? So we might go into these interviews, we might go into these jobs not thinking that we're good enough. I would encourage all of you to think through how you feel about that and find a way to boost your confidence. If you need a pep talk from someone on Albert's list, if you need a pep talk from someone in this community, that is something for you to go and get. Number 2 is to take courses and increase your skills. So Coursera, LinkedIn Learning, all the free resources and semi-paid that we had mentioned earlier. And then number 3 is to attend conferences and networking events. And the more focused they are, the better. And so now we move to the next one. What do you do once you get hired? Because all of you are going to get that job at some point this year, and I'm hoping that it's in all of the next 3 months. Because you know what? As much as I enjoy all of you here on this webinar today, I don't want any of you showing up in 3 months when I do this webinar again. I want all of you to have jobs, and I want you to come to a webinar where we're talking about how to stay in that job and how to grow in that job instead. And so a new job is a new beginning. It's not the time to rest, but rather the time to keep going, right? So you're in that new job, you're now getting a paycheck again. It's your first day. It's time to hit the ground running, hit the ground hard. And if you got to refresh yourself before you go and get this job, do that too. Take a short break, take a short vacation, recharge. You showed the hiring manager that you're capable of doing what you're doing and that you have the potential. Now it's the time to perform. And what does that look like? It looks like learning new skills. It looks like onboarding quickly and showing that you care about what you're learning. It's about growing those communication skills and becoming a better leader within your company and building that level of credibility that ultimately ends up with you earning increased duties. So along the way, becoming a good communicator and showing that you can be successful in the work that you do are going to go a long, long way. And so things to keep in mind along the way as well, once you've gotten this job, for better or for worse, is that number 1, a job is rarely forever. So keep networking and building your brand. I want all of you should be posting on LinkedIn or posting on your own social networking sites or tweeting or etc. And building that level of credibility so people can see you and know what it is that you're discussing. You should also, as you register your accomplishments, write them down on your resume. Right? I mentioned earlier that many of you in the resumes that I've read in the past tend to sell yourself short. So as you get those accomplishments, write them down on your resume. Understand what it is that you got to do to get to that next job as you look at other job descriptions. And then stay in touch with those old recruiters and those that you network with. Albert's List is a great way to stay in touch. LinkedIn messaging people is also a great way to stay in touch as well. And then finally, some closing thoughts, right? We just went through all of this. So if you think about it, having the hunger, the attitude, the self-awareness, resilience, and the commitment is the way to help you, number 1, build the foundations for you to get that job. Number 2, that resume, cover letter, all those skills that you need, plus job searching is going to help you get closer to that job. And then everything above that, the dynamics, the strategy, understanding how things change, having a vision and leadership are all the top. You don't necessarily need those unless you're a senior leader, but they are helpful to have. And so with that, I know we've gotten to the end and I know everybody's gotten accustomed to a sales pitch. So I'm giving you guys another one. And so here's what I'm offering for everybody as we get to the end of this particular webinar. I'm offering you a job seeker survival kit to start out your 2024. And so this is something that I've been compiling based on a lot of webinars that Albert's List has done over the years. It's 39 videos across finding your next job, discovering what you want, sample mock interviews, what to do once you get hired, and really diving deeper into what I've shared with all of you today. And it's 46 hours worth of total content. So if you started watching this today, you'd still not be done in 2 days. And it's about $2,000 worth of content that I'm going to be giving away for just 17 bucks. And I'm just going to go ahead and drop the link to that in the comment section as New Year, New You. And so check that out. It goes into detail what exactly we have in here. It's a lot of content, and you'll learn a lot about that as well. In addition to that, I'm also offering a special deal for a year of career office hours, one-on-one with me, yours truly, every other Wednesday. So we have 26 sessions that we're hosting for that this year. And basically what it is an hour on Zoom every single other Wednesday. And you get to ask me any single question that you want around job search. We can look at your resume. We can look at job search strategy, and we'll do it together in a group coaching setting where you'll find other professionals. And so my normal rate for doing any career coaching is 225 bucks an hour. So for about $20 into 26, it's a lot cheaper than that. And it's just me wanting to give back and wanting to help each and every one of you. So I encourage you to take a look at both. It's a lot of quality content, a lot of webinars that we've had over the years, and it's a chance for you to get started and get ahead of the hiring rush that hopefully will come after here in January, February, so that you can hit the ground running when all those jobs start opening up. And so with that, I wanted to offer you another opportunity to stay in touch. My LinkedIn profile is up there below. I encourage you to join Albert's List and introduce yourself, and to indicate that you discovered me or the community through this webinar today. I want to thank you all for your time. And we have so many more webinars coming up as well. And so I look forward to seeing many of you at all of them as we go through. And so I think I've answered most of the questions tonight. I look forward to seeing you in the community. I look forward to supporting you in your job search and seeing many of you have a successful 2024. Feel free to go back to our Eventbrite page. Many of our events are over there, and I will see you soon. Cool. Thank you, everybody. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.